Happy New Year, Council. Welcome back. I can't believe we're in January, but thank goodness 2020 is over. I was just waiting for, us to get an extra week or something. Okay, we are at City of Sammamish City Council regular meeting. It is 6:32. City Council and Tuesday, January 5th, 2021. Yay. Okay. First up is the call, and do you want to do roll call?
Yes. Mayor Karen Moran.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Christy Malchow.
Present.
Councilmember Ken Gamblin.
Present.
Councilmember Jason Ritchie.
Here.
Councilmember Chris Ross.
Present.
Councilmember Pamela Stewart.
I see her.
Can you not hear me?
Okay.
That's better.
There she is.
Councilmember Kent Treen.
Present.
Wonderful. Everyone's here. Meeting accessibility. Pursuant to the Governor Emergency Proclamation 20-25, the city is unable to provide an in-person location for the public to listen to the virtual City Council meeting this evening. Meetings are still accessible to the public, and public comment is able to be submitted. To view live, you can go to the city website, www.sammamish.us /TV21, to the city YouTube, or to Comcast Channel 21 within Sammamish only. To view later, again, to the city website, YouTube, or Comcast Channel 21 within Sammamish only. Pledge of Allegiance. Deputy Mayor, would you help us with that this week? Thank you. Uh-oh, I think you're on mute. There she is. You're on mute.
I already said it. I didn't realize I was on mute.
Do it again.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag
America, to the republic for which it stands.
That's fun. Okay, approval of the agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any comments or changes? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Excellent. Next up, we have the election of the deputy mayor. And then I'm going to ask for nominations. So do we have any nominations for deputy mayor?
I do.
Okay, Councilmember Ross.
I nominate current Deputy Mayor Christy Malchow.
Okay. Deputy Mayor. And then Councilmember Stewart.
I nominate Chris Ross.
Okay. Do I have any more? Okay. So the way we're going to do this is I will call for votes on each. We will go by the first name that came up first, and it will go to whoever has the majority of votes. Do you want to do roll on this? So you have it? Okay. So the first up is the vote for for Deputy Mayor Melchow to stay as deputy mayor. And would you do a roll call vote on that?
Mayor Karen Moran,
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
Madam Mayor, are we able to make comments before the vote?
absolutely. If you would like to, yes. Do you guys want to do a minute? Is that what you want?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a quick
Okay.
comment if I have the floor. I appreciate the opportunity to be nominated for deputy mayor, but I really encourage the council to support Christy Malchow going forward. The continuity of the mayor and deputy mayor tandem is going to help continue some difficult issues we've been working through, and so I think that's a best leadership position going forward. Thank you.
And Christy, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, thank you for the opportunity, though. But I appreciate the nomination by Councilmember Ross.
Okay. With all that said, now would you calling for the vote for deputy mayor to stay deputy mayor?
Mayor Karen Moran,
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Christy Malchow,
Hi.
Councilmember Ken Gamblin,
Aye.
Councilmember Jason Ritchie,
Aye.
Councilmember Chris Ross,
Aye.
Councilmember Pamela Stewart,
Aye.
Councilmember Kent Treen.
Aye.
That is a 7-0 vote for deputy mayor to stay as deputy mayor. Thank you, deputy mayor, for staying on as deputy mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have emergency management, COVID-19 update, and we have got Andrew Stevens here with us tonight. So, and I know this has been the last 2 weeks with a new strain coming in, so I'm looking forward to this update.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor, council members, city manager. My name is Andrew Stevens. I'm the emergency manager with Eastside Fire and Rescue. So across the nation, states are beginning to experience the expected surge of COVID-19 cases that resulting from the holiday gatherings of late December. Even though the U.S. was leading the world in both cases and fatalities, and still is, over 18 million individuals still elected to travel during that time, including a record 1.3 million people that were screened by TSA this past Sunday alone. Many states' public health systems are being pushed to the brink of collapse. ICUs are being filled beyond capacity, and ambulance services are having to wait sometimes hours before they can transfer patients out of their care. In Los Angeles, for example, the medical care systems are currently so overwhelmed that officials have instructed paramedics and EMTs to no longer transport critically injured or sick individuals to hospitals if they first cannot be resuscitated in the field. The U.S. is averaging over 215,000 new cases each day and nearly 2,700 COVID deaths every day, or one death every 32 seconds. This means that since I began talking, roughly 3 individuals have died from COVID-19 in America. The U.S. has also seen 21 million cases of COVID-19 since March, or roughly 1 in every 15 Americans, and a staggering 365,000 fatalities. There are even some studies estimating that the actual number of cases in the U.S. may be more than 4 times higher than what is being reported due to asymptomatic individuals. Locally, King County has seen nearly 65,000 cases, and Sammamish is now registering 804. There are 2 vaccines to prevent COVID-19 infections have now been granted authorization for emergency use, and every day thousands of people are becoming vaccinated. The CDC has reported that more than 4.8 million initial doses of the 2 COVID-19 vaccines have been administered so far. And while that is far fewer than what was expected to have been given at this point in time, it is presumed that the number of vaccines provided will rapidly increase as logistical networks improve. So far, however, only 35,000 King County residents have received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. And given that it will be most likely well into 2021 or later until herd immunity by vaccination is achieved. So therefore, I'm highly supportive of staff's decision today to cancel all large city-run events through July. City closed its community-wide COVID-19 impact study, impact survey with the new year, with 1,454 individual responses, over half of which were a result of the informational postcards mailed out to every household in the city. The results provided key insights into the needs of the community and how the City Council may elect to address those needs through additional support or funding. A few of those key takeaways include 6.4 of the respondents were recently unemployed due to COVID. 3% of respondents claimed to be experiencing extreme financial stress. 48 respondents were very concerned about their continued ability to pay for housing. And 113 respondents were very concerned with their continuity of employment. Lastly, nearly 600 respondents were either very concerned or somewhat concerned about access to mental health care services. The results of this survey highlight what we may have expected, that although the majority of the city's residents appear to be weathering this COVID-19 storm, there most definitely are portions of the population in need of additional or continued assistance. While the federal government finally approved additional assistance to both individuals and businesses, and additional state programs have also been rolled out or extended, there are still most likely gaps where city government may need to step in and fill. Regarding the CARES Act funding that was specifically earmarked for COVID-19 response and recovery expenses, the city has spent roughly $1.9 million of the $2.9 million that was already reimbursed to the city. This includes $155,000 on emergency protective measures and internal COVID-19 expenses, $215,000 on IT expenses necessary to ensure continuity of government, and $1,211,000 that were dedicated or distributed in 2 rounds of small business and nonprofit grants. And lastly, $315,000 to support human service organizations assisting those who are impacted. A full breakdown of those expenses was provided to the council earlier today. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question up here from Councilmember Gamblin.
Yes. Hey, Andrew, thank you so much for that report. It's sobering, just very, very sobering. Could you possibly speak to testing? It seems that there's been some testing options that have opened up here locally recently, and I'm wondering if you have any idea or you could shed any light on to people who might be interested in that.
Yes, thanks for the question, council member. Testing, it continues to be increased testing capability is happening around the region. A few weeks ago, we actually did receive one of our first free testing sites on the east side over in Bellevue. So that has actually been a plus for Sammamish, Issaquah, Redmond, citizens who don't have to go into Seattle or down into the South King County or North King County for a site. Those sites are free. It is recommended to get a reservation to streamline it. However, although that's not required. And there are multiple testing sites as well through private urgent care facilities as well through your own doctors.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew.
You're welcome.
Okay, next I have Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I don't want to call people out, but I have growing concerns with, the surge happening and potentially a new, even more contagious strain hitting the U.S. that our folks who are in City Hall are there without masks on. And I know that you may be more than 6 feet apart, but you're going to be there for several hours. And again, the guidelines from the CDC discuss that your time of exposure is just as important, if not more important, to the spreadability as the distance that you are apart. And I worry that people are exposing each other and putting each other at risk being in City Hall together without masks.
Well, I can assure you that the people that are sitting over here at the side desk are wearing masks. And Andrew,
But you are not, Madam Mayor.
well, you wouldn't be able to understand a word I said if I was wearing my mask. So I do not wear a mask. And Councilmember Gamblin, who is way at the other side of the thing, he's here tonight, which is unusual, and I'm happy to see him. And it's yet to be seen if he's going to be wearing his mask for a portion of the meeting or not. But I do share your concern. If I have to wear my mask, you and anybody else who's listening will have a great problem understanding what I have to say. So I do not wear a mask. I worry about our staff who are coming into City Hall to serve our city, and they are all wearing masks.
We wear masks to protect others.
Point of order.
Thank you. Okay. Was there a question that you had for Andrew?
Well, my question is, would you recommend that people in City Hall all wear masks, given the current surge?
I think it would be my recommendation that if it is possible, and especially if social distancing measures cannot be enforced, then staff are required to wear masks while they're at work.
Then shouldn't the elected officials also be required to wear masks while in City Hall?
Okay, you know what? I do wear a mask when I come in, except for when I'm running a meeting. And so, do you have a question for him regarding his report?
Well, my question remains, are elected officials not required to follow the same guidelines from the governor as city staff?
We are following the same guidelines that anybody else is.
I actually don't believe you are, Madam Mayor, and I don't mean any disrespect, but I believe that if you are inside
Point of order.
City Hall. Well, I had a question for Andrew. Can I get my question answered?
Yeah, council member, I do not think it is my place to enforce what elected officials do or do not do.
Mayor and council, this is Dave at City Manager. As far as city staff goes, on a regular basis, everyone is required to wear a mask unless in their individual office. It's been my observation as city staff wears masks.
And Mr. City Manager, it's not city staff that I have concerns with. It's that I am concerned for the city staff, because they are putting themselves at risk by coming into City Hall to work and to serve our citizens. And if everyone isn't wearing a mask, then they are being put at risk.
Point of order.
Okay, who is, yes, and who is Jason?
It's Jason.
Yes, Jason. Please.
If we are going to discuss this issue, I would recommend that we go into executive session at the risk of potential litigation, please.
I would concur with that.
It's one thing to ask questions. The question's been asked. They've been answered. If we're going to continue this conversation regarding risk, we should move into executive session for any further detailed answers or questions, please.
I would certainly concur with that. Okay, Councilmember Stewart, did you have any other questions for?
Nope, I would like to add that as a topic to our executive session, please.
Okay, next is Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Andrew, I have a question more for the residents and just kind of getting their, information out to council, but also to our residents. As the vaccines are now becoming available, how will general citizens know that they are now eligible to receive a vaccine? Are we going to be getting messaging through the city, through the state? Should we anticipate our own primary healthcare provider contacting us? How will people know when they are eligible to receive it?
That is a wonderful question, Deputy Mayor. Been in contact with King County and Seattle Public Health regarding that. They are still even, preliminary establishing what that priority of vaccines and when people will get it will be. So that's not fully defined yet. Right now, again, these phase 1A of first responders, healthcare, frontline workers, as well as some of the more vulnerable populations living in assisted living facilities qualify. There's been some discussion of phase 1B, which may include, secondary, a more continuation of those same services, but not necessarily as closely tied to COVID. I have not seen a full breakdown of definitions of what that entire phase schedule will look like over the next year, most likely. But it will be put out by state public health and then distributed down through King County, Seattle Public Health, working within the medical hospital and networks that they have here in the Pacific Northwest. When that does come out,
Let me do a.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Andrew. I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
No, there will be, when they do roll out, they will come with a widespread outreach campaign to ensure, similar to how they do with all the testing, with everything else they've done, basically, it is only going to work as well as it's communicated with. And again, they're going to have to establish different sites, as well as working within the areas that already can provide vaccinations, such as urgent care clinics, for primary doctors, as well as the larger scale test or vaccination centers they've already established here in the state.
Okay, so it's safe to say that people won't have to sit at home wondering that as long as they have their eyes open and their ears listening, they'll know. They'll hear it from likely multiple sources.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we do have more information at a city level, we will be amplifying that message loud and clear to all our residents as well.
Great. Thanks so much, Andrew.
Okay, then I also had a question, something that came up on the mayor's phone call today, and this was from Issaquah, was that they were going to be doing a hub off of their website, and it was regarding information of, and I wrote this down, information on who, where, when injections would be available, where they'd be available, so that a citizen could go to the Issaquah website and they would be able to go as far as looking up, where their name fell into the alphabet, where they'd be able to get one within the city limits, or, where in the county the nearest spot would be, and that sort of thing. So, and they were, I guess their first meeting on that was going to be as soon as next week. So, would there be some way that we could keep track of what Issaquah is doing so that we'd make that information available here?
Absolutely, and I can work with the communication staff here in Sammamish to replicate that, whether it's on Connect Sammamish, on the city website, or provided through print, which appears to be a very widely used source of information here in the city based on just the results of the survey alone.
Great, thank you. Okay, Council, do we have any other questions for Andrew? Okay. Thank you. Excellent report. Okay, next up we have got public comment. Pursuant to the Governor's Emergency Proclamation 20-25, the city is unable to provide an in-person location for the public to listen to the virtual city council meeting this evening. Meetings are still accessible to the public and public comment is able to be submitted. Written comment Written public comment will be accepted until 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Submit your written comments by email to the city clerk at lhatchie@sammamish.us and the city council at citycouncil@sammamish.us. Verbal comment is up to 3 minutes and may be provided per person live during the meeting. Call the following number and input the access code when prompted by 6:30 p.m. the day of the meeting. Phone number of 1-571-317-3122 and the access code of 929-348-197. Once you have joined, you will be placed on mute. The meeting operator will unmute you when it is your turn to comment. You will hear an automated voice say unmuted. When that occurs, the operator will ask you to begin your comment. If you would like to provide public comment on the public hearing, please say so when unmuted. You will be placed back on mute and will have an opportunity to speak under public hearing. How many people do we have this evening?
We currently have 12 people who have called in to provide public
Great.
comment. I will unmute callers in the order that they have joined the meeting. When it is your turn, you will hear an automated voice say unmuted, and then you will have 3 minutes to provide public comment. Please start your comment by stating your name, the city you live in, for the record. I will now unmute the first caller. Caller number 1.
Hi, City Council.
Are you speaking
Hello?
for public? Are you speaking for public comment, the public hearing, or for both?
Yes, I am.
For both?
I'm sorry, for public hearing
Public hearing.
regarding ordinance 2020.
Yeah, we will be having public hearing comment after the executive session when we have the public hearing is open. If you want to stay on the line or call back after the executive session. Oh, okay.
And when is the executive session?
Following the public comment right now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
You can just stay on the line.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will. Thank you.
I'll now unmute caller number 2.
Hello.
Are you calling for the public comment, public hearing, or for both?
Yes. Yes, public comment.
Okay, thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. My name is Giselle Lehner. I am a property owner of a taxable, buildable lot on Inglewood Hill. My husband, Edward, and I have 2 young daughters. We live in Sammamish. We have been residents for the last 5 years. During our time in Sammamish, we have faced many challenges. The biggest challenge has been a life-threatening illness of our youngest daughter. And during that time, our family experienced the overwhelming love and support of our amazing community, friends, and neighbors who rallied behind us to help us get through tough times. Purchasing a home in Sammamish has also been another great challenge due to the high demand in the real estate market and bidding wars impossible to compete with for us. A year ago, we opted for purchasing a lot to build a home for our family. This lot is on 211th Avenue Northeast on Inglewood Hill. Since purchasing the lot, we've become members of the Inglewood Beach Club community and had the pleasure of meeting many of our neighbors who seem super nice and welcoming. Getting to know those neighbors on Inglewood Hill and our experience with our neighbors during our daughter's illness has been reassurance for us that Sammamish is the place where we like to raise our daughters. But we are now facing a huge roadblock in our construction project due to the failing traffic infrastructure. As a Sammamish resident, I care about the traffic, and I just want to show we are not building a subdivision or condos or apartments. We are building our primary residence. We want our neighbors to know that we want to add value to our street, to our community by building a beautiful new home, adding beautiful landscaping. We care about the trees, and we appreciate the beauty of Sammamish, and we're willing to replant trees per code. We have been working really closely with our team of civil engineers in the city of Sammamish building department to comply with all the requirements for obtaining building permits, designing retaining walls, stormwater drainage system, etc. When we purchased this land, the city had approved our UEs for our land, and we were making progress following the city's guidance. The current building moratorium has been a huge setback in our plans to finally settle in our permanent home, adding a lot of stress as we struggle to find another temporary home while our house gets built. The rental market is also extremely competitive, with homeowners raising the rent by $200 due to the high demand. We are highly invested in this project, and our lives are on hold waiting for the city to allow us to proceed with the construction of our home. Since the pandemic started, we have seen significant traffic reduction with many people working remotely. I think since there's not a traffic problem at the moment, I think this might play in our favor to proceed with our permit submittal. So we are respectfully requesting that City Council does not delay our project any longer and help us by terminating the building moratorium, or to at least vote for option number 2 and allow the building of single-family homes on existing lots. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now unmute caller number 3.
I wanted to comment on the during the public hearing, please.
Okay, I will mute you, and we'll unmute you after the executive session when the public hearing starts. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now unmute caller number 4. Caller number 4.
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Hey, my name's Doug Top. I'm a tax-paying property owner of the city of Sammamish, and have been working diligently for 13 years to build our Sammamish home. Most recently, when the city of Sammamish recommended that we hold off on our traffic concurrency, we were informed the council was going to make a determination on whether to abolish the concurrency. We then got hit with the stop build moratorium, which added a 14th year to our project. Another extension of the moratorium will add a 15th year to our development. On a personal basis, the moratorium hit another dramatic financial and life-altering blow to my family. After 37 years with the Boeing company, I had an opportunity to retire on December 4th with 26 weeks of severance pay, but I was forced to pass it up because we've not been able to progress our build and secure our loans. So due to the council's moratorium, that has gone by the wayside as a huge loss. As far as traffic concurrency since COVID-19 pandemic, it has been reduced by 33 to 50%, and the traffic congestion issues that were existing a year ago have either dramatically reduced or eliminated. I've attached a bunch of charts fresh off the Washington State DOT site, which give verification validation to these numbers, and in particular the SR 520, which is a major gateway for Redmond, Sammamish, and the Inglewood neighborhood. So you can see that it's at all-time reduction low. As far as 2021 and going on beyond, it will be many years before traffic levels return to those of late 2019 and 2020. This is due to the companies restructuring their business to adopt significant virtual work policies for employees. This represents significant cost savings for companies relative to asset utilizations, in addition to Washington State commuter highway credits. I'm a manager of a Boeing company, and I will tell you we're in the process of implementing 65% of our employees will work 3 days or less, and 35% of the employees will work 4 to 5 days. A major number of Boeing suppliers are following suit with the similar initiatives, as well as many of the local businesses around here. I'm also a RE/MAX agent of 18 years, and it's common knowledge in our industry that since this virtual office work concept has come around, there's been a huge migration out to more remote cities, that the commuting is not a problem, in addition to the fact that they have lower housing. I've also added several charts from the MLS showing the data for all the surrounding cities. And I gave 10 cities, one of which is Sammamish. And what you'll see is the Sammamish far outpaces every city, including Issaquah, by large margins of escalated house pricing. The growth restrictions have created reduced supply of homes. Consumer demands have artificially driven up the prices, and the city of Sammamish certainly flourishes because of the inflated property taxation. The stop building traffic concurrency is no longer justified. Traffic issues have been mitigated since the moratorium began, in addition to significantly lower traffic forecasts associated with virtual office. We see no justification for extending the moratorium, which will add 15 years to our project. We all believe that City Council should either terminate the moratorium altogether or at least minimum allow these single-family dwellings to continue, especially ones of 14
I
years.
have to ask you to finish up your sentence.
Yeah, I think I just did.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
I will now unmute caller number 5.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Welch.
Did you want to speak for public comment or the public hearing or for both?
The public hearing right now is what I would like to speak for. All right. My name is Dr. Jeremy Welch, and I own a single-family lot located on Inglewood Hill. I purchased this lot back in 2006 and have suffered through economic downturns, the failure of the bank that held my original loan, and drying of new construction loans being available. In addition to these factors, I've also been slowed down by building moratoriums and other roadblocks. During my efforts to move forward through the various stages of development of my single-family lot, we have worked closely with the city employees. I've personally taken days off of work and closed my practice in order to attend these meetings. In addition, I've paid my engineers to attend these meetings with me so that they could have their questions answered and make sure that no details slip past them. During one of these meetings last spring, we were told that a decision was being made on the traffic concurrency, and this would happen within a few weeks. We were also recommended to us that we should wait because that we were going to have to spend several $1,000s to have this performed, and it would be behooving to us to not waste that money if it was going to not be needed. Now, this was not the first time I received advice from the city employees that either altered our development or raised serious concerns for me. During one conversation with the city employee, myself and other families trying to develop our property were told that maybe we should just try to that maybe we should just try to do a recreational permit for our lots. And when we asked why, we were told the city did not want new development. I don't know how to tell you this, but that is a punch to the gut. After spending years and thousands upon thousands of dollars to have this thing built, we're now being told bluntly that it wasn't going to happen. The current moratorium, I believe, is a blunt instrument that it was applied hastily when the traffic concurrency was determined to be inadequate or needing refinement. I did not set up this process. I did not implement this process, but me and my family are now being meant to hold the brunt of it. If this, sorry here, I haven't really done that. I lost my spot here. So I hope the council understands the impacts of their decision tonight and the impacts that it has on people, their families. They're not just nameless faces. They're not just developers or corporations. They're real people. They're people that are trying to build and move into the community in good faith. I urge the council to cancel the moratorium, or at bare minimum, please allow single-family development. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now unmute caller number 6.
Madam Mayor, just really quickly, that previous caller actually stated he wanted to speak on the public hearing, and I know that the public hearing hasn't opened yet, so is it possible to make sure that his statements become part of the public hearing record?
It'll be 3 minutes. But he said he was going to speak.
Because he was asked if he wanted to make public comment or on the public hearing, and he said public hearing. So I think technically he should have been asked to wait, but he wasn't. So I just want to make sure that becomes part of the public hearing.
I believe he said that he wanted to speak now. That was fine. Yeah, we can add it to the public hearing too. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Caller number 6. Are you speaking for the public comment, public hearing, or for both tonight?
For the public hearing.
Okay, I will mute you and you can speak again later. will now unmute caller number 7. Caller number 7, are you speaking for the public hearing, public comment, or for both?
Sorry, there was a delay there. I'm wanting to speak to the public hearing for the building moratorium.
Okay. I will mute you and you can speak later at the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Caller number 8. You're unmuted. Would you like to speak for the public comment, the public hearing, or for both? Caller number 8. Hello? Caller number 8?
Hello, is that me?
Yes.
Hi. I want to speak about the traffic concurrency moratorium. I don't know if that's hearing or comment period.
Would you like to wait for the public hearing? And I can mute you and you can
I can
later.
do it. Yeah, I can do it. I can do it now if you want to just
you can
answer
do
it.
now, or if you want to speak for public comment, you can speak now. But if you want to wait for the public hearing, I can mute you and we can unmute you later at the public hearing.
I'll wait for the hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now unmute caller number 9. Would you like to speak for public comment, or the public hearing, or for both?
Hi, could you clarify that for me? I would like to speak on the traffic concurrency.
Sorry, we can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Caller number 9.
Mayor, could you explain to the callers what the difference is between the public comment and the public hearing? I think people are really confused. That's what the caller said. He said he wasn't sure whether he should be speaking now or for the public hearing.
Okay, I did not hear what he said. So let me try to. If you are to want to speak and have it on the record, what your comments are for the hearing this evening, which is on. Let me explain what we have. I'm going to read it to you. So the hearing this evening is opening on the ordinance for the additional 6 months on the moratorium and the concurrency. So if you're here to speak on the moratorium or concurrency or anything to do with that and you want it to be on the record, then you should wait to have any of your public comment go with the hearing. If you don't care if it's on the record, or you don't want to wait, or it has nothing to do with the hearing, then you want to speak during public comment.
Okay. I'll just speak now during public comment. Thanks. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. My name is Edward Lehner, and I am a Sammamish resident for over 5 years. Moved my family across country to this area about 6 years ago. We quickly discovered Sammamish and decided that's where we wanted to buy a house. We were lucky enough to find a rental here. And a couple years ago, we had a major setback with my daughter was diagnosed with hepatoblastoma, which was a cancer. That really took a hit on us financially, emotionally, physically, obviously. So when we came out of that, we decided to buy property. At that point, the real estate prices have skyrocketed. And then with the life-threatening illness, really set us back. So we bought the property, and then the moratorium hit. And that's really been tough on us. And then COVID hit. We've been homeschooling. My daughter's recovering from cancer. It's been a tough couple years, to say the least. But my kids are now 12 and 10. One of them's at Inglewood. The other one's a fifth grader at Blackwell Elementary. We've been here for, like I said, 5 years in Sammamish, established our roots here. We really want to build our house and get our kids some stability before they're off to college. That being said, I work at Microsoft, and I've been working at home for 10 months. They have implemented the hybrid workplace, and I know for a fact that most of the big tech in this area has announced that most of their employees will be working from home or hybrid after the pandemic's over. Microsoft in particular has issued their flexible guidelines, which state if you want to work from home up to 50% of the time, but not over 50% of the time, you do not need manager approval. If you want to work from home over 50% of the time, you have to work that out with your manager. And I already know of a lot of people that have worked that out and are going forward with that. Some people have moved out of state, and Microsoft has approved that with manager approval. Some people have even moved out of country. So they have super flexible guidelines, and all of this has significantly reduced traffic in this area. So I feel strongly that that should be taken into consideration when you move forward on this moratorium. Under the Growth Management Act, we are legally able to build a home on this lot. It had already passed RUEs. So I strongly encourage City Council to take into consideration the families and the impact it has on them. And I would respectfully request the city to lift the moratorium or at least allow the building of single-family homes on existing lots. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now unmute caller number 10. Will you be speaking for public comment or the public hearing, or for both tonight?
The hearing, please.
Okay, I will mute you and we'll make you available at the public hearing.
Thank you.
Caller number 11, you are unmuted. Are you speaking for the public hearing or for public comment tonight?
I'd like to do both, please.
For both?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Mary Wichter. I lived in the city of Sammamish for 20 years. In fact, in 8/31/1999, that was when the city of Sammamish incorporated, so we were no longer King County as part of Redmond, but we became Sammamish with, I believe, the 2 zip codes at that time. Since that time, or at that time, there was actually a water moratorium on building. So where you needed 1 or 2 water lottery winners, you were able to get that. But then that was shortly fixed because the water districts and sewer districts figured out how to get enough water. But I understand from Don Jarrett, who I think was the longest city council member, that we originally had a moratorium in place for 6 or 7 years. But that moratorium was not on single-family home lots. It was on subdivisions and short plats. So there was not a lot of building during that time. And just about the time that moratorium came off, there was the housing market downturn. So a lot of people didn't submit homes to build. But I live in Tamarack, and Tamarack was platted in 1964 before there were subdivision regulations that were comprehensive, which were adopted in 1969. And during the time that the city had us from 2000 to 2016, there were 40 new homes built. And I did want to say that there were 4 that were trying to build, and they still haven't built. So I wanted to give you some statistics from the area I live in, because people just believe if they buy a lot and they can build that it works out. And I will give you the statistics that about 20% or 25% of the lots in Tamarack that try to build either never do and end up with 1, 2, or even 3 foreclosures. So it's really important to look at where you're building and how many critical areas it has. So for Tamarack, I'm just going to give you some numbers here for 11 different parcels that had 1, 2, or 3 foreclosures. 2 of those actually foreclosed and still have nothing built on them. And one of them tried to go through 2 bids to have somebody buy it off, and they couldn't even foreclose during the foreclosures. There were 5 of them that foreclosed 2 times. They've taken longer than 15 years to build. They are still not building. I think they have actually walls and windows and maybe a roof on them now. There's another one that actually did complete building, but I think they had to do a threat or claim for damages to the city, and that took them 9 years to build, and there were problems afterward, which I believe most of those have been fixed. There's another one which started doing clearing and grading and tree removal during the time the tree regulations were, which was about 2014. It's been going either clear and graded with nothing happening or building for 6 years now, and it maybe looks like they'll actually finish in 2021. There's another one which didn't build until they put their permit in 2015. They went ahead, got that approved, and did build within 2 years, but that home actually has continuing problems even though it's sold in our area. And then another one this summer finally got approval after I think several years to build, and the first week without any complaints from anybody, the city actually put a stop work order on them because they were not able to do what they needed to do that they had written up. So basically the process in Tamarack and Inglewood has not been working, and that's what Phase 2 development regulations are for. So I'll speak later on that during the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caller number 12. You have been unmuted. Were you speaking for the public comment or public hearing or for both?
Public comment, please.
Okay.
Echoing, I believe, since I'm the last caller, what many have already said, single-family homes and lots are not significant traffic generators. This is a year that's been unlike any other, and on top of it, continuing to allow, or I should say not allow, people to build and continue to have families in turmoil, due to traffic when we're not ever going back to where we were, and not ever going back to all being in the office. I think that, I'm a mother of 4. I work full-time. My husband works full-time. Neither of us will ever go back to the office full-time. I plan to work from home 5 days a week. And, when I'm not going to be on the road traveling out of state, when we get to do that again. For these reasons, I think it is very important to allow families to get on with their lives and get out of where we are and have been stuck. Even investors, builders, homeowners with existing family lots, they tend to be small business owners, and we know that small business owners are suffering the most in this time. And there are families renting. We're currently renting and waiting for our homes to be built. People right now don't have job security and can't wait, whether it's 6 months, a year, 2 years, 9 years, 15 years, as we've heard on this call already. This can put people into bankruptcy when we're already dealing with probably the single most difficult 10 months we've dealt with as a country and as a city as well. If the city's moratorium is a continued, focus at all, it should be on larger developments that may be responsible for traffic. But, even in these situations, many will continue to work from home and not have the same requirements to be in their cars and to be commuting. I would ask that the city overturn this moratorium.
Caller number 12, could you state your name for the record, please?
Oh, yes, I apologize. Sarah Moore.
Thank you. I will now unmute caller number 13. Caller number 13, are you speaking for public comment, public hearing, or for both tonight?
Yeah, this is Doug Top. I got kicked off, so I came back on, and now that we have the explanation about the public hearing versus the discussion, I think most of us want to stay on for the hearing.
Okay, thank you. We'll mute you until the public hearing begins. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Madam Mayor, that is all we have for public comment tonight. I will turn it back over to you.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for calling in, and especially those that are going to be waiting for us, because the next thing that we have is executive session. And it is executive session for litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30110, 1I, and to review the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, 1G. It gives us approximately 30 minutes. I am assuming that is probably, well, yeah, well, okay, so I'm going to say that that's probably short. I'm going to say it's going to be 45 minutes. I think that's probably more accurate, so we will see you back here probably at 8:15. Okay, the next up on our agenda this evening is the consent calendar. Okay, let's make sure we have everybody from the council back here. Okay, I think we have everybody back. Do we have everybody back on? Yep, I'm seeing them all join in. Okay. Okay, so the next up is the consent calendar. So I am looking for a motion for approval of the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the consent calendar, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Excellent. The consent calendar goes forward. Next, we are on to our public hearings. And I'm going to open our public hearings this evening. They will remain open this evening. So we will be taking in our public comment. And this is regarding the ordinance. We are going to be opening both of the public hearings. On option 1, an ordinance of the City of Sammamish, Washington, renewing for an additional 6 months the 6-month moratorium established in Ordinance 02020-508 on the acceptance of applications for concurrency certificates, SMC Chapter 14A.10, adding exceptions for public agencies as defined under the SMC 21A, 15, and 915, and establishing an effective date. And option 2, and the ordinance of the City of Sammamish, Washington, renewing the additional 6 months moratorium established in Ordinance 02020-508, the acceptance of applications for concurrency certificates under the Sammamish Municipal Code, Chapter 14A-10, adding exceptions for public agencies as defined under 21A, 15, and 915, single-family residences on existing lots and accessory dwelling units, and establishing an effective date. The hearing remains open until the second reading, and that will be on January 19th. And with that, I want to go back to our public, with that, I want to go back because I believe we are going to have David Pyle who's going to speak. And David, are you on?
Mayor Moran, David Pyle here, Community Development. Good evening. Thank you for introducing the topic. All I have to add to that is presented to the council tonight is an agenda bill outlining 2 potential options regarding renewal of the moratorium on traffic concurrency certificates. The question for the council to consider is whether the council should continue the moratorium on processing of traffic concurrency certificates established previously under Ordinance 2020-508. With that, I'll turn it back over to you to open the public hearing. The only action asked of the council tonight is to open the public hearing and continue it to the 19th of January, 2021, where we will be asking the council to make a decision regarding the renewal of the moratorium. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so we are going to, again, we're going to open the public hearing. And with that, let's go back and hear the public comment from those who have been waiting very kindly for calling in.
Madam Mayor, I see that we have 12 people who have called in to provide public hearing comment tonight. I will mute the callers in the order that they have appear on the screen. When it's your turn to speak, you will hear a voice say unmuted, and you will have 3 minutes to begin public comment. Please state your name and the city that you live in for the record. I will now unmute caller number 1. Caller number.
Hi, this is Laura Clays. I live in Sammamish. I've lived here for about 5.5 years. My husband, Stephen, and I have already submitted written comments, so I'm just calling to quickly thank you for considering to allow an exception for accessory dwelling units when continuing this moratorium. As has been made clear by other residents calling, we, as well as my aging parents, are really impacted by the moratorium continuing in its current form. I would like to be able to provide a place for my parents to age that is as dignified and connected to us as possible. But if the moratorium continues in its current form, that will simply not be possible because of their financial constraints. So seeing option 2 on your agenda today was really quite exciting for us. And once again, we just thank you for considering this option and appreciate your time as well as city staff's time that has been spent on it. Thank you so much.
I will now unmute caller number 2. Caller number 2.
Yes, a quick question before I start. There was a caller that commented on public comment time, and he got dropped off the line, I think, and is trying to get back on. I don't know if there's any way he can get help to get back on. That was Dr. Jeremy Welch.
Yeah, actually, I do believe he got back on, and he is at the end, so he did get back on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hi, my name is Michelle Pop. I'm an owner of a taxable, buildable, single-family lot here in Sammamish. I have owned and been trying to build a home on this property for over 13 years. The delays in being able to build on this lot have been numerous. It has been frustrating and has caused continual emotional stress in my day-to-day life, as well as a constant financial stress. With this project always hanging over our head, it has impacted every major financial decision we've been faced with. With all the delays, it has also disrupted the scheduling of many personal projects and events, such as the remodeling of our current home or taking our now adult kids on a family vacation. The answer always seems to be put it off until the Sammamish house gets built. My daughters were 9 and 13 when we bought this property. They are now grown adults. And I feel this has robbed my family of living this whole life far too long. The current moratorium and the extension has once again put a delay on our project. The additional restriction of not even allowing permit submissions so that at least the review process can begin, even if the actual approval can be granted, has maximized this delay for us. We also have a current RUE that's expiration will be in jeopardy if this moratorium is extended again and no exceptions are granted. I also fear that when you do open up to allow permit submissions, that the current timeline for the reviews and approval may not be adequate due to the staff being overwhelmed with the number of permit submissions. If this happens, then this again will add more delays to our project. The original moratorium was put in place because of the existing traffic concurrency process was found invalid. If the second extension of this moratorium is based on the EIS and not on traffic concurrency, then I think that the permitting system should be opened back up. I'm a property owner that has been paying taxes for 13 years. We have been working with the city extensively and trying to follow all procedures, building codes, regulations, and we just want to build our house. without constantly getting new roadblocks thrown in front of us to add more delays. I request that you lift the moratorium, or at the very least, vote for option 2 and allow the building of single-family homes on existing lots. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now unmute the next caller.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members, and city staff. My name is Cara Bean. I currently live in Kent while we wait to build a home on our property in Sammamish. I'm speaking in favor of option 2 of the building moratorium that has exceptions for existing single-family home lots. I am a teacher in Issaquah. My husband is a carpentry professor at Green River College. We're obviously not people of great means, but we've worked hard and saved our money to build a home on a single-family lot that we could never afford to purchase from a developer. Because of this, we purchased that single-family home lot in an established neighborhood in Sammamish about a year and a half ago. At that time, Sammamish was no longer under a building moratorium and had recently passed policies that allowed for development, so we were assured that we had no reason for concerns about future building moratoriums. We did our due diligence with the lot before we purchased it. Lot and geotechnical surveys that showed that there were no concerns, the sewer was already paid for, all utilities were in the street, there were good soils, everything was good. We closed on the property and then proceeded to work with an architect to create a plan for a house that would allow us to keep as many trees as possible on our lot, something we found lacking in many new developments. You can imagine our surprise and distress this spring then, when the emergency building moratorium was put into place and we could not apply for a building permit with no idea when the moratorium might be lifted. We do understand that Sammamish wants to control growth. We too are concerned about the potential for environmental issues when developers clear-cut large swaths of land, which is one reason why we purchased that single-family buildable lot in an established area. We are confident that careful, targeted growth can balance the concerns of citizens to have a vibrant, welcoming community while also mitigating environmental concerns. We are not wealthy developers, property speculators, or investors that have backers looking to make money on development. Like others you have heard from tonight, we are a middle-class family looking to make a home for our children. Because of the building moratorium, we have money tied up in a property we cannot use. Not only can we not build our new home, but we cannot sell the property to recoup our costs either, as only a speculator will purchase a lot that is unbuildable due to moratoriums for pennies on the dollar. According to the data for the notes for tonight's meeting, city staff estimated that based on historical data, the impact of lifting the moratorium for existing single-family home lots would be 8 to 13 new home applications, compared to the 56 to 340 recently platted single-family homes in that same period. If we estimate that each of the homes would average 4 people, we're talking about 32 to 52 people in those 8 to 13 homes, or less than 1/10 of 1% of Sammamish's population. Lifting the moratorium for these property owners would mean almost nothing to the city at large, but would mean the world to families like mine, as well as showing the GMHB that Sammamish is in compliance with the GMA and not prohibiting all development through ongoing moratoriums. During the pandemic, all of us have experienced the feeling of being stuck, of having things outside of our control, and we all know how horrible that is. Right now, my family is stuck. But unlike the pandemic, you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members, have the power to let my family move forward. You have the power to support families in the city by lifting the building moratorium for existing single-family lots without sacrificing the quality of life of other Sammamish citizens or the environment. We are asking you to consider us and the other people like us that you have heard from tonight. Please lift the building moratorium on existing single-family lots while you continue your work reviewing the city's master plan. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
I will now unmute the next caller.
Hi, my name is Robert Bean. I'm a Sammamish property owner, currently reside in Kent. And a lot of people have already said kind of what I intended to talk about tonight, which is exactly option 2, considering the extending the building moratorium. I'd like to thank council for allowing this opportunity to speak. It's very much appreciated. I guess custom. I'm looking at it as a community. Single-family custom homes are, should be the backbone of any good, strong community with high property values, as opposed to a whole bunch of cul-de-sacs where developers come in and made just a bunch of the same type of homes. the people that you've heard talk tonight are the people that they're investing in their futures. We're going to take the time for the quality of the homes to be built. We're going to take the time to maintain the homes over time. This is our dream. This is what we're passionate about. This is what we want to do. And developers don't have that same mindset. And it kind of sounds like what we have here is a little bit of the opposite of what's going on. So I'd like to encourage you to please lift the moratorium, at least for single-family homes, where they be strong members of the community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'll now unmute the next caller.
Hi, my name is Mary Wichter, and I've lived in the city of Sammamish for 20 years, and I happen to live in the neighborhood of Tamarack. I also submitted public written comment with Mary Johnson, who's lived in Inglewood for 8 years. And in that, we wrote that we strongly support option 1 for renewing the ordinance on the moratorium for at least 6 months. We do not specifically support option 2 for adding exceptions for single-family residences on existing lots. I wanted to clarify a little bit of the data that I provided under public comment tonight. I live in Tamarack, where there are landslide, steep slope, and erosion hazard areas. And in Inglewood, there are a multitude of erosion and erosion hazard area-sensitive water bodies, no disturbance, steep slopes, landslide hazard areas, and critical aquifer recharge areas. And what has happened is, of the 11 of the 44 homes I quoted in Tamarack, that's 25% of them, they didn't have extended time building due to any moratoriums, because except for the last year, there hasn't ever been a moratorium on building single-family lots on single-family homes on existing lots. And the reason that it's needed is there are impacts to the house, the success of the owner, and the area around the neighborhoods, and particularly the people that live downhill. And the development regulations phase 1 that city and staff did last year made good changes, and phase 2 is currently underway. And it is essential that these new regulations and code are adopted before there are new development requests, since I understand that vesting occurs when an application is deemed complete. I also disagree with the numbers that the staff give, that there are only 8 to 13 homes. You've already heard, I believe, 12 or 13 callers tonight asking for development. Some of those are in Inglewood, but some of those are probably other places, and there is a pent-up demand for them. So you're going to get a blast or a slew of new development applications. And this also, when you keep the moratorium on subdivisions and short plats, that will actually drive more people to seek vacant and existing lots and parcels and trying to build. The easy-to-build places really are gone. They were already developed. Thus, many of the remaining vacant parcels are incredibly difficult to build on successfully. And as I've given the example, 1 in 4 in Tamarack has failed. They either don't build, they build with problems, they're still trying to build, or they're stopped due to topography like steep slopes and geology of the area, like landslides, erosion, and such. So traffic is also not being looked at on east of Sammamish Parkway, so anything that flows to those, the traffic certificate won't stop it. And growth really should be directed where adequate facilities will be efficiently provided or be available at the time of occupancy. And some of the historic plats, like Inglewood and Tamarack, lack these. Infrastructure is just not roads, but water, sewer, and stormwater facilities with sufficient capacity for full build-out conditions. So in the areas where those aren't, and you've got steep slopes, landslide, and or erosion areas, you have people that have trouble or ended up with foreclosures trying to build successful projects, and it had nothing to do with the moratorium. So recently, there are also some sewer capacity issues for a number of the gravity basins in Sammamish. That's been noted by King County and the local water and sewer districts who are working on it. But I think that you need to consider this. So please, we would like you to do option 1 tonight and keep single-family homes, don't exempt them, so that they can be handled with the phase 2 development regulations. Thanks.
I'll now unmute the next caller. Hello?
Yeah, is that me? I couldn't tell.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, for the record, my name is Doug Top. I'm a tax-paying property owner in the city of Sammamish, and I've been working diligently for 13 years to build our Sammamish property. Most recently, when the city of Sammamish recommended we hold off on the traffic concurrency, we were informed by the city council that they might terminate and abolish it. When we got hit by the Stop Building Moratorium, which just added a 14th year, another extension would add a 15th year to our development. You just heard from my wife telling that how absolutely devastating this has been to our family in countless ways. Now, after 37 years at the Boeing Company, I had an opportunity to retire in December 4th, and I had to pass up 26 weeks of severance pay due to the fact that this moratorium was blocking our ability to get our loan and secure the money. Since COVID-19, the traffic has been down 33 to 50%. Existing traffic congestions and no longer exist or have been dramatically reduced. I have provided some Washington State DOT charts. Of particular interest is the Highway SR 520, which shows a 33% reduction and is a major gateway for Renton, Sammamish, and the Englewood neighborhood. As far as 2021 and beyond, our 2019 traffic levels are not going to come back since the COVID-19. Companies are restructuring their businesses to adopt significant virtual working policies for employees. This represents significant cost savings for companies in terms of asset utilization, in addition to receiving Washington State commuter highway credits. As an example, I'm a Boeing manager, and we are now in the process of implementing a policy where 65% of our employees will work 3 days or less in the office. The remaining 35% will work 4 to 5 days in the office. A majority of Boeing suppliers are following suit in similar initiatives, and most of the very large local companies are doing the same. I'm also, as a RE/MAX broker, it's common knowledge in our industry that buyers have changed their focus to more remote cities due to virtual working policies and lower cost housing. I've added some MLS charts that show 10 cities, including the city of Sammamish. What you'll see is city of Sammamish far outpaces every city, including Issaquah, by large margins on escalated housing prices. The growth restriction has created reduced supply of homes. Consumer demands have artificially driven up the price of homes, and the city of Sammamish certainly flourishes because of the inflated property taxation base. Stop the building traffic moratorium. It is no longer justified. Traffic issues have been mitigated since the moratorium, and traffic forecasts are low for the future. We urge you, absolutely beg you, to select option 2.
Thank you.
I will now unmute the next caller.
Hello, my name is Jeremy Welch, and I currently live in Bellevue. I own a single-family lot located on Englewood Hill. I purchased this lot back in 2006 and have suffered through many economic downturns, the failure of the bank that held my original lot loan, the drying up of new construction loans being available. In addition to these factors, I've also been slowed by building moratoriums and other development roadblocks. During my effort to move through these various stages of development of my single-family lot, we have worked closely with city employees. I have personally taken off days of work and closed my practice in order to attend these meetings. In addition, I would pay my engineering company to attend these meetings in order to make sure that all questions were answered and any details that might slip past me would be addressed or clarified by my experts. During one of these meetings last spring, we were told a decision was being made on the traffic concurrency within a few weeks, and we should wait to see what the findings were before we put out several thousands of dollars to have the study performed, as it may not be necessary. When it was determined that the traffic concurrency was going to have to be altered or changed due to its application, we were then stopped in our tracks with a new building moratorium. This is not the first time that we have received advice from city employees that either altered our course of development or raised serious concerns for me. During one conversation with a city employee, myself and other families trying to develop, we're told that maybe we should just try to get a recreational permit for our lots because, quote unquote, the city did not want new development. I don't know how to explain how deep this hit me. After purchasing a lot, putting in thousands and thousands of dollars into studies, city fees, property taxes, and working for 14 years to have this developed, have a city employee be so blunt as this was a punch in the gut. When I purchased the property, it was a buildable lot. The plan was to develop it and raise my family there, not to have a recreational property. The current moratorium, I believe, is a blunt instrument that was applied in a hasty way when the traffic concurrency was determined to be inadequate or needing refinement. I did not set up the process, nor did I implement it, but I am taking the brunt of it now. The moratorium is continuing to cause not only personal stress, but financial damages. These include, but are limited to, ongoing taxes being paid on a lot that is stuck in limbo. Tonight, I closed my practice early, so I was able to speak with the council, and there's many more that I will not bother talking about tonight. I hope that council understands the impact their decisions tonight have with real people. We're not just talking about faceless developers or corporations. These are real people that are trying to develop in good faith. Therefore, I request that the city lifts the moratorium and allows for option 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now mute the next caller.
Good evening, City Council members. Paul Stickney here in Sammamish. I support continuing moratorium while you work through your holistic land use with your EIS and BERC, and you finish, development regulations phase 2. I understand how all that fits together. My comment tonight is in support of the email I sent today about how big is big and how small is small when it comes to housing growth, which is the true main issue in Sammamish. And in support of that comment, I've sent in a slideshow presentation that was done by Richard Berg and myself back in late 2017. And I've been holding on to this for the right time, and this is an important time. I think there needs to be a major paradigm shift in how land use is looked at in Sammamish. And you all have a copy of my slideshow, but on slide number 2, it talks about moving away from treating symptoms and moving to root ailments, which I think is what you're doing in the BERC study. On slideshow number 3, or on slide number 3, instead of having housing policies that keep things to a minimum, I think it's important to reassess optimally balanced housing based on the wants and needs of those living in Sammamish over a cycle of life. On slide number 4, I think for years and years in Sammamish, housing decisions have been made on strong feelings and anecdotal evidence before all the facts are in. It's important to get all the missing facts, including the CHU and single-family housing that I outlined, or single-family build-out outlined in the email, and reassess those feelings and sentiments after having all the facts. On slide 5, I don't think we should focus on, quote, the negatives of housing growth. I think we should focus on the combination of what happens when you have positive increases and positive decreases based on optimizing housing. On slide 6, we tend to look at one type of housing number in Sammamish, and there are actually 3. At next week's meeting, I'll give another historic presentation that I did with Dick on that issue. On slide 7, a lot is talked about affordable housing, but instead I think the main focus, the paradigm shift, has to look at housing affordability for all. On slide 8, I think it's time to move away from limited, unbalanced constraints when it comes to housing, and instead focus on optimal, balanced sustainability as called for by our comp plan vision statement. Almost done, on number 9 speaks for itself, and I'll just end with number 10. We can't just focus on the here and now. This is about the long game, 7-generation approach, past, present, and future, and needs to be given serious consideration to adding a optimizing alternative while you're under a moratorium. And thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you.
I will now unmute the next caller.
Is this my turn?
Yes, it is.
All right. This is former Deputy Mayor and Council Member Romero Valderrama from Sammamish. In May 2020, the Growth Management Hearing Board stated the invalidation of the additional corridor level of service volume to capacity because it violated SEPA and GMA. At the next council meeting, instead of reverting back to the existing level of services at intersections unanimously approved by 2 councils, this council added yet another moratorium to work on concurrency. That the council has been unsuccessfully working and racking up millions in expenses to the taxpayers since October 2017. Your actions, as you have heard, greatly hurt citizens, homeowners, scared away business investments, forced our citizens to drive and shop elsewhere, and caused Sammamish residents to leave to find different housing options as their housing needs change. Now the council wants to again consider moratoriums and gave the city manager guidance of an agenda of zero growth. As long as the moratorium is in place, the city is in violation of the GMA remand. Now, if you see my slide over there, what has the council achieved? You have raised our legal budgets up to $2.8 million plus. You've managed to have consulting fees that have gone $4 million plus, new staff and supervision for $2 million more dollars. You raised our property taxes this year 6% alone. Meanwhile, having a deficit of $5.6 million achieved by using all of the city's $9 million in contingencies. So much for responsible fiscal governments. Furthermore, the city is now budgeting $34 million less on capital infrastructure projects and ignores $400 to $600 million of infrastructure deficiencies. Clearly, despite all the rhetoric of the past few years and contrary to your election process, building infrastructure has never been a real priority for this council. Through its actions and inactions, it is clear to anyone who has reviewed the budget, listened to the council's rhetoric, that the council instead is actively trying to impede development of the town center and growth. They voted 4 times to support the town center as designed. They also told the hearing board that the town center was how they were going to meet the GMA housing requirements, then promptly invalidated its permits while pleading that they were still trying to meet GMA requirements. I and many others have commented during the EIS scope period that rather than focusing on the EIS on changes to accommodate no growth, there should be an alternative so that you can support the type of housing growth that the city wants and needs internally. It is time to get the information needed for the citizens. Why doesn't the council just tell its citizens what it really wants? Say you want no city infrastructure or services. Say that you don't want to keep long-term Sammamish residents in the city when their housing needs change. Say that you just want to continue to raise taxes in the economic crisis, to spend more millions on lawyers to further your extreme ideological stance that is, as you have heard, greatly hurting and impacting the citizens of this city and costing us grief. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romero.
Madam Mayor, that concludes the public hearing comments for tonight.
Okay, Council, that is the end of public comment. So the next thing we're going to do is we will open it up for council if they've got questions to staff. Deputy Mayor, since it's pretty difficult for me to try to keep track of timing on this, and I don't want to run into having people cut short on time or having to have people cut people off. So could you, Deputy Mayor, could you keep time for me on speaking time for people? And let's go and see if anybody has got questions for staff. Okay, first off, I've got Deputy Mayor's got a question.
Great, thank you. So a couple of questions. The option that has both the ADUs and the single-family parcels in it, I just wanted to get some clarifying language there, or at least understand the language as presented, because the option is single-family zoned parcels. And I'm unclear, excuse me, based on the chart that we have, whether or not the language should be a little bit more tailored to what the intent is. I don't know if we need to add the word independent single-family residence or say non-platted single-family residence, because in the chart below, we're still defining single-family residence as those that are platted. So the language there just didn't seem to encompass what the underlying goal was here. So that's question one. I'll let staff answer that one first.
So this is David Pyle, Community Development. Thank you for the question. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue that we have is that we break existing single-family lots into two categories. One is those lots that are recently platted that are still vested and still have valid concurrency certificate from the original processing of the preliminary plat or preliminary short plat. And that time frame is 5 years from the date of recording. So when the final plat is recorded, they have 5 years to build the homes, and they remain vested under that concurrency certificate. Once that expires, the lot is created. It's still there, but they have to then come back in for a concurrency certificate with the building permit at that point. So those lots that are recently created, recently platted, are already considered to have concurrency certificate with them for 5 years following the date of recording of the final plat. So those are the projects that are still being built. Those are the permits that are still being submitted. We do have many of those moving through the system still. Projects like Meadowleaf are still being built. So I want to be clear about that. The other category is those lots that were legally created, whether prior to subdivision law, through subdivision, relatively recently through subdivision, but have expired for vesting, and that would require a concurrency certificate in order to make a complete application for single-family building permit. So that's the instance where you as an individual are purchasing a lot with the intent to build a new home on it. There is no division required or proposed, and you are simply trying to come in and obtain a building permit to put a new home on a lot that's vacant. That would not include buying an existing home and tearing down the home and rebuilding it, because those do not require concurrency certificates. So to be clear, the category that we're looking at here are those existing lots that are not vested under subdivision law, that don't already have an existing residence that's being demolished and rebuilt, and that were legally created through subdivision law or were legally created prior to the state adoption of subdivision law, so Tamarack or Inglewood. So those are the parcels and the properties that we're looking at that would be eligible to come in for application for concurrency certificate, and then following passing concurrency test would be eligible for submittal of single-family building permit application.
Okay, So I guess the question I have is the language, at least that's in the packet, and I'm not referencing the ordinance specifically. It just says new single-family residence, which doesn't sound as refined as what you just said, which was existing lots not vested under subdivision.
So
it sounds like we're allowing anybody who wants to build a single-family house to build it, no matter what, if it's in a subdivision or otherwise. And I guess I'm just trying to make sure that the language that we have in this option is reflective of that, you know, the city expects somewhere between 8 and 13, rather than 353, which is what happened in 2017.
Well, the 353 would already be protected. So the 353 are irrelevant to this conversation because they already are.
No. We use those as examples in our packet.
So
right? In 2017, what walked in was in plats, there were 340 built. Those that were, it says not recently platted, single-family residence, 13
yep.
for 2017.
So that would have been lots that were older, that had not had a home built on them, that maybe was held by somebody in ownership for a period of time, that were not vested under subdivision law still,
right.
Where the vesting had expired. That's the 13 number versus the 340, which are typically a commercial builder doing a division, yep. building homes. Yep.
Understood, but they're both considered single-family residences, and our language says new single-family residences.
Correct.
As the exemption, not single-family residences that aren't under subdivision. I think that's where I'm trying to make the distinction, because right now it looks like we're going to allow all single-family homes to be built regardless of whether they're in a subdivision or not, based on the language.
So I guess to some degree that's true, because currently you can apply for a building permit on a recently platted lot. It doesn't require a concurrency certificate. So those building permits are not being held up currently. Those building permits are continuing. So this would not affect those in any way. So we are allowing all single-family building permits to be submitted under that premise, because you're in one of two categories. You're either a recently platted lot, or you are an older platted lot that is not vested under subdivision law. So in essence, we already allow those recently platted lots to apply for building permit. And what this would do is it would open up the door for the second category to come in and apply for permits. Those are currently being held up.
Okay. So I think it was Mary Wicker that during public comment made a good point. The two examples that we have here on how many will walk in, and I guess I'm just trying to get some clarity in staff information here. 2009, kind of right in the throes of an economic downturn, 8 walked in. 2017, non-moratorium year, 13. So if we have a moratorium on and we're only allowing these not recently platted single-family residences to come in, the statement that Mary made, which is you're actually putting more pressure on those, I think you're likely to see more than 8 to 13, right? At least that would be my guess. But considering that there are 820 of these lots that are available and buildable in Sammamish, is it really, I guess, an accurate thought to think that somewhere between 8 and 13 will walk in based on historical data from 2 years that staff pulled? Or are we likely to see more? I mean, I feel like we heard from more than 8 families tonight who are looking to build homes. I think I'm just trying to have my eyes wide open when there are 820 lots out there that maybe could walk in the door. That's like, that's significant. 13, not so much, but at 10 trips per day, 820 houses is 8,200 trips. And so I think that's why I'm just trying to understand the, economic pressures that the moratorium has on those single family lots. What's the reality that we might anticipate, knowing that there's 820 of those lots out there that are buildable?
It's a great question, and we don't have any data to go by. So to be clear, we did in this statement in item 1 on page 21 of 29 say that based on this data, the city would expect somewhere between 8 and 13 new independent SFRs in an average year. So we weren't trying to hedge our bets against how many might come in the door. We were simply trying to provide a benchmark by which the city council could understand how many we typically see in an average year.
No, and I totally appreciate that. I think my question is considering the economic pressure that we as council, by having a moratorium, have put on the development community, would it be an unfair assumption to say that we're likely to see more than 13 of these walk in?
No, it would not be unfair. Would not be an unfair assumption. However, I would say that you would get into the upper limits of what would be reasonable if you were to see somewhere of 30. That might be the high limit of what I would anticipate. Understanding that many of the callers you heard from tonight were husband and wife. So if you consider that, I think we might have heard from 5 property owners tonight. Okay, and that's helpful that, you know, an upper limit of around 30. That gives a little bit of a bookend on what we might see based on the moratorium being in place. So, David, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry, I was just going to ask. I didn't understand, Madam Mayor, your comment about timekeeping. I wasn't sure what that was referring to. But if nobody else has any questions, it's probably irrelevant, so that's fine.
Okay. So you don't have any questions for staff?
Nope.
All right, so does anybody else have any questions for staff?
Mayor, this is Jason. I have a procedural question.
Okay.
Based upon the schedule and our study session next week and the meeting the following week, and this being the choices that we have regarding the moratorium being on our agenda the following, at the next general meeting, 2 weeks from tonight, I think.
Yes.
Is it safe to say that there will be an opportunity again for us to review these issues in an open setting and be able to make comments and ask questions at that point?
Yes. There will be more public comment, and because the hearing's left open. So yes, you'll be hearing more public comment at that meeting, and more questions and stuff that you can ask of the staff. And this gives you time to think about it and form your opinion.
Thank you, Mayor.
Uh-huh. Okay, if we don't have any questions, any other questions for staff, then we can move forward. Okay. Next up, we have unfinished business. And do I have anybody from, Dave, are you online? Is there any unfinished business?
Not to my awareness.
Or new business? Nothing? Okay, council reports. All right. We do not have a late executive session, so I am looking for...
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Have a good week, everybody.
You too.